Welcome back to Bike Life, and you are all in for a treat today because we have Ken Francis back with us. And you have probably heard Ken Francis's show, or his face looks familiar as part of Warmshowers, or you have seen him, hosted him, or been at his place. He has been a part of this community since 2013, and he has hosted more than 269 users. He's located in Long Beach, and he is an amazing human that I'm so glad to have back on the show. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Taverly. It's so good to be back.
And I also neglected to mention that you spent a significant amount of time on our board of directors. So you and I are very well acquainted, and you're also very well acquainted with Warmshowers.
Yes, I was around starting in 2013 when the census, the population just started to boom, where we were getting, maybe 20 to 30 new members a day, up to 100 to 200 new members every day.
Wow. So what was it like then at Warmshowers in terms of like our technology? And I know that's a big question. I can see you laughing. It's a big question. I think it's sometimes helpful for listeners, especially because we have so many new users that still join us every day, for them to know where we came from.
Well, it was mom and pops back then. It was a duocracy, and all the volunteers kind of did what they wanted to. So if somebody wanted to change the picture on the welcome page, they would just do it. And everything seemed to work really well back then, but it was much, much smaller. And as it became more overwhelming, we started to organize. That's when the board was formed. And there were some growing pains, of course. And, a few of us really kind of stuck with it during the rough patch, just to watch it grow into the amazing community that it is today.
So you were on the board for almost 6 years. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we definitely miss you on the board, and we're grateful to still have you around. And I love the fact that we tap on you when we need some extra good pictures or we need some information. You have been such a great resource to me personally in my role as executive director, and to this organization. We all owe you a great deal. So if you don't get told this often enough, here is an official shout out of thank you, Ken. Thank you for everything.
Wow. Thank you. And I also want to thank, prior to Warmshowers, everybody who hosted me on my tours, because, it's just me giving back to everyone who helped me. That's really what this is all about.
So let's talk about what it's been like since the beginning of 2020 until now, which, as we know, it's been a very transformative period of time on this planet of Earth that we are all residing on. And you have a wealth of experience of what the cycling and hosting sector was like prior, and then what it's been like since. And so why don't we start with, let's go back and start with a little bit about, maybe high level of the tours you've done in your experience before we had these life-changing events.
Okay. Well, I think my bicycle was kind of my best friend when I was in high school, and I realized the farther I could ride, the farther I could go. And I always wanted to do a cross-country trip, or a trip of some magnitude. And I never found the friends to do it. So when I was 21 years old, I decided I was going to do a trip down the coast of California by myself. And that was it. That was my goal. And along the way, I met two other cyclists who were doing long-term trips. And on my last day, I realized that I didn't have to stop. I could keep going kind of like they were. So I realized that it was not just going to be a trip down the coast. So in 1985, I ended up riding my bike to Boston from Los Angeles, and had such an amazing trip. The next summer, I did a similar trip. First year, I did kind of a northern route. And the second year, I did a mid route. And then when I graduated with my master's in 1994, I had been doing like week and 2 week trips along the way. But in 94, I went cross country again. But this time I stopped and stayed with people that I had met on the first two cross country journeys, cementing these relationships. And now there's people that I go back and visit every year in Pennsylvania and Virginia, because we're family now.
Yeah, your family now. I was just going to say that. Yeah, that's amazing. And you continue a lot of those connections, even just in the way that you host now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I've been doing since day one is taking a picture of every guest. I was piggybacking on the old Bike Centennial, which is now Adventure Cycling. When people would come into their office, they'd always take a picture of them on their bicycle. So I started that with the first guest. I have an original Pacific Coast bicycle route sign that was along the California coast for many years. And didn't get it with my first guest, but every guest since has gotten a picture of themselves on their bike with the official Pacific Coast Bicentennials.
Wow. And do you print those pictures and keep them in an album?
I print them and I put them in an album. However, about a year and a half ago, the album started to fall apart.
Oh,
and
no.
so I'd print the pictures, but I wouldn't put the numbers. So I kind of lost count of people. And lately I went to a hobby store and I bought a scrapbook. And what I've been doing is I've been putting all the pictures in the scrapbook. And in addition to the chronological pictures of everybody on their bicycle, I've also in the back of the book have pictures of all the fun things that we've done together with them, such as Disneyland, Hollywood, kayaking at night. We just had a guest here who I promised that if he came around Christmas, we would take him kayaking at night to see the lights. And we actually were in Long Beach on the night of the Christmas boat parade. So we decorated the boats with Christmas trees and lights, and we dressed up and just gave this guest a wonderful experience. And that's kind of what I want to do, is give these people an experience. The photo book also, because I'm enlarging it with this, I have a little more flexibility with this book. So I've dedicated a couple pages to the Warmshowers directors, because I've met so many of the directors on the board, as well as the founder, and also expanded it to put down the pictures of hosts who I've stayed with.
I love it. I love it. I know that people can't see us, but the book looks amazing. And maybe you can send us some pictures and we can attach it with this podcast of the book. I mean, you have so many pictures. Maybe you can, or choose a few good pictures. I mean, you send us lots of pictures, but I like the idea of people seeing what we're discussing.
I'd love to. And also I have pictures in here of our barbecues. We host barbecues and events with local hosts. So we kind of have a directory here from like Santa Maria down to Ensenada, which helps a lot of the cyclists when they come through, because if they stay with somebody at each end, a lot of times they contact other people along the way. So there's people don't have to necessarily worry about trying to find a place to stay in this large city, and they can kind of make arrangements along the way, which is really neat. And when we get together, we all have these books or guest books, and we share them, and we all come together and talk about who we have shared as hosts and our experiences with those people. So it's always a joyous time.
I love it. 269. That is amazing. 269 new friends, new experiences, lives that you have changed.
Thanks. And a couple of the people actually have returned with family members. So we've got to meet some of the families in the past as well.
Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about 2020. I know that you had a tour planned in 2020, and what happened? How did you adjust? And what has that been like?
So I'm at a point in my life where I've decided to combine two things that I love, bicycle touring and roller coasters. So I had a trip planned in 2020 to ride across Ohio and Indiana and hit some theme parks, and then also go to Europe. And everything was just on lockdown. Everything was just shut down. I was able to be flexible and adapt. So at the height of the pandemic, or one of the peaks, I flew to Seattle with my friend Philip Robinson, and he rode with me a couple of days as I headed south through the Cascades to Lake Shasta. So I had some amazing hosts during that trip, a lot of social distancing, but it was nice that the community was still open and welcoming. So great experiences there. And then instead of going to Europe, we rode our bikes across Arizona, New Mexico, into Texas. So very desolate trip, but things opened up in 2021, and I was able to cycle across Indiana and Ohio, and I hit 8 theme parks on that trip and stayed with a couple really good Warmshowers hosts, and then flew to Europe. And we had kind of a change of plans for the routing, and there's a couple in northern Germany who we hosted here 3 times, Karen and Werner, and amazing couple. And they've always wanted me to come visit them. And they were just never on the route. But when we had a change of plans, all of a sudden it's like, we go right past them. So not only did we stay with them, but they were having a bicycle festival that weekend, which was kind of a camping event at a local. I stayed with some other new people who I've never met along the way. And then I stayed with a woman outside of Amsterdam who I've stayed with twice before, hoping for her to come over here beside someday soon. And there was a couple in Belgium that heard that we were heading that way, and we had hosted them here on New Year's not New Year's, Christmas Day a couple of years ago. So they wanted to see me. So they came out from Brussels into Holland, and we all spent the day together. So just really, really good times with my Warmshowers family.
Mm. What was it like? So that was that was this year,
this year.
Not this year. Last year, by the time this comes out, this will be last year because we're in 2022, which is wild to say. Can I just,
yeah.
We're in 2022, Ken. Where does the time go?
A lot of good miles, though. That's one thing I can say. Traveling with the coronavirus, the COVID, was very interesting. Like I said, we kind of changed our route in Europe, which was a good thing because one of the thoughts was flying into Amsterdam. But at that point in time, we changed and decided to go into Denmark, which was good because right before we flew out of here, Amsterdam and Holland closed their doors to the U.S. and Denmark was wide open. So it would have been we would have difficulty entering Europe if we had tried to enter through Holland. So everything worked out great. There were a couple places where we needed to show our vaccine cards. So most of Germany, when we were going into restaurants, hotels, we had to show the vaccine cards. When we got to Holland, we weren't allowed to eat inside because even though we had the vaccine cards, you needed to have a QR code from the EU, and we did not have that. But we were careful. We wore masks everywhere. We hit 5 theme parks over in Europe. So,
wow.
It didn't stop us. Everything was wide open. And it was just perfect timing because I understand right as soon as I got back that the cases started to surge and things started closing down. And being in contact with my friends over there, they're back in lockdown mode again in a couple of countries.
Right now, you mean?
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And they predicted that once the weather cooled down, that there was going to be another surge over there. So it wasn't really surprising. So I think everybody was just enjoying being open as long as they could. And we certainly enjoyed the trip. I mean, it was awesome. There wasn't a single day on that trip that wasn't amazing.
How long were you on that trip?
3 weeks.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. I have to ask, there is a roller coaster sort of above the city in Copenhagen. Did you, and I can't think of the name of it, but I've been on that roller coaster.
Tivoli Gardens? Are you talking about?
It might be, yeah.
Well, Tivoli Gardens is in the center of Copenhagen. So we went there. There's another theme park close by that we didn't go to. We headed south towards Berlin. So we basically rode from Copenhagen to Berlin, and we stopped at Hansa Park along the way and rode Karnen, which is like this amazing roller coaster. It's definitely in my top 10.
Wow. I love it. I love the idea of combining roller coasters with your bike touring. How interesting. I don't hear that very often, and roller coasters are a rush.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is when we went to Hansa Park, it was raining that day, so there wasn't a lot of other people there. We were a little skeptical about locking our bikes out in front of the park because they were fully loaded with all of our tents, sleeping bags, and everything. However, it's not near a major city, and we got out and everything was fine. So
it's fine. Yeah. So you've been able to tour since the pandemic. You've done it safely. You've found ways and made adjustments. And knowing that a lot of borders closed to different countries, I'm sure you recall that I have a big portion of my family resides in Canada, and it's been really difficult for us to, get everyone together because of the travel restrictions. And we've just been very creative in how we've stayed in touch. And so I understand that crossing into certain borders and certain restrictions are still a challenge. So we recommend people do your research, like put the time into real time. Like if you're planning something for this coming summer, make sure that you're staying up to date as you get a little closer, because there are a lot of posts in the forums of people that have planned trips, and the day before they depart, they thought, oh, I better check and make sure I'm allowed in that country. Give yourself a little bit more time daily. Yeah.
Check daily, because that's how fast things happen. Even like at work, I work in mental health, and we closed our doors to all online or all in-person psychotherapy, whether it be individual, family, or group. suddenly closed our doors back in 2020, and we didn't even have the technology to do virtual at that time. It took like a month to get up and running. We opened our doors, we closed our doors, and we saw the surge happening, and we were waiting for the doors to close. And sure enough, on Thursday, we went back to 100% virtual again. So it changes so rapidly. And with this Europe trip, even though we had postponed it from 2020, going into the trip in September, there was still some worry about what was going to happen. And I even, said to my friend Philip that the week before, it's like, we have to have a backup plan. If for some reason we can't fly to Europe next week, we need to do something else. And, my suggestion was maybe just do something a little bit closer, like start in San Diego and ride the Baja, So always have a backup plan ready just in case.
And now, what has it been like to be hosting during these wild times?
Didn't have too many people come by in 2020. The very beginning of the year, and I think towards the end of the year, not during the surges, but between the surges, we saw a few people coming through, and most of them were domestic. They were from the United States because with the borders being closed, we were able to go to Europe before Europeans were able to come over here. This last year, though, 2021 was much better. Hosted a total of 17 cyclists, which still is not a lot for us on a busy route. I just recently posted this on Facebook with a collage of the Warmshowers guests and hosts for this year with the statistics of, who we hosted and where they came from. I would say all the cyclists we've had, they've been vaccinated, and some of them even boosted at this point in time. So been able to be flexible with that, and just glad that, during a time when everything is on lockdown, that we still can be kind of a shelter in a storm for these people coming through a big city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, as you can imagine, it's been a difficult time in our community for a lot of people that have had a lot of plans or have not developed comfort yet in interacting with others in the midst of what's happening. And so, we have been providing as much information as we can, and as much information of users like you who have been a part of this community so long, that have experience in touring and in hosting, to give a really good way to think about it, of what's possible. So can you talk a little bit about how you handled any potential concerns as a host, or did you have any concerns?
I really didn't have concerns. I mean, I'm lucky that I work in healthcare, and I was one of the first people to get vaccinated. Knowing that the household is vaccinated and other people were saying they're vaccinated, I've known people that have passed from COVID, so I'm not denying that it's not real. But bicycling to work a few days a week through the Los Angeles port, where there's a lot of refineries and potholes and big rig trucks, I really do think the odds of me getting killed cycling is way greater than COVID. And I'm not dismissing COVID, but I'm just saying, we have to live, and we have to make the best of whatever our new normal is. So if the surge was really, going on, there was a period of time where we didn't host, when I wasn't fully vaccinated. So yeah, you have to be cautious. And you just have to be flexible. One of my hosts coming down from Washington had a horse trailer that had kind of like a bedroom in the back of it. So the way that I was hosted was I stayed there, and the interaction I had with my host was outside, wearing masks, and I was fed dinner. And when I came out of the shower, the dinner was waiting for me on a table outside. So I think that's a really good way of adapting. I still had hospitality. I still had a great experience. He was still contributing to the community, but we were doing it in a safe way.
One of the things that you and I were discussing before we started to record was adaptability. And you've just provided a really good example of an option of how to be adaptable. And it takes time. It takes us all a little time. And some people are still adjusting to what that can look like. Our new normal, as you say. There are ways that we can make it happen, but maybe it's going to be different than what we originally thought or what we've known in the past.
You have to be creative.
Yeah.
You have to be creative. when we closed our doors at work, there was no way for me really to get information out to my patients. So I started a YouTube channel on mental health and the things that I would normally be teaching them at orientation or in group, or just positive things in general. I started putting on little YouTube videos, and some of them have actually been inspired from doing my bike trips. I've done some of these videos on the fly while on a trip. And I think that's a good example of, making the best of the situation and doing something also that comes out of it that's enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. So what do you suggest for people that really desire to be back on the road and touring and still have some hesitations? Do you have any tips or tricks that you can provide that, can help people either ease their mind or ease their path of worrying about their safety? And I'm talking specifically about the virus.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that, what I've seen is a lot of people put in their profiles that they are fully vaccinated. When I get a request for hosting or vice versa, putting in the letter if you are, or if you have any health concerns. Also, what I've noticed with a lot of people that have requested to stay here, in the letter, basically the concerns were, we respect everybody's opinion about this, and we would be willing just to have a corner of your garden to pitch our tents and out of the way. So we don't want to be a burden. We don't want to put anybody at risk. We want to be safe, but we also were wondering if there's any way you can help us. So I think really, putting your concerns out there and verbalizing. I think the basis of our community is communication. It's how we contact our hosts and guests, what we put on our profile, how we leave feedback. I think those are all really important things. So I think the better you can communicate with your prospective host or guest. Also, if you're traveling, there's also the option of wild camping. And I know a lot of people love that. And a lot of people love balancing the warm showers with the wild camping, because with warm showers and hospitality, oftentimes you get a lot of late night conversations, which might throw off your sleep schedule. I know when I travel, there's a lot of times when I'm in bed by like 8 o'clock trying to get up before the heat at 4 or 5 in the morning, and staying with a host can kind of throw that sleep cycle off. So I like to balance it with being in a campground or just wild camping sometimes.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I know that, it is important to have the balance. And, you and I have talked about this many, many times in your tenure with the organization of, mixing it up and knowing that, we know that warm showers isn't the be all end all for people on tour. We are an added benefit of building community, but, not to let that replace your need for the solitude part of your journey and being in nature. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had guests in the past when I've, ask them, where are you going next? Because I can call this host or this host or this host and let them know and see if they're available. And I've heard, no, I think I need a breather. I think I need some alone time here for the next night or two to camp out and have some solitude. And I totally understand that.
Yeah, I get that. I want to tap into the mental health side of the work that you do and reflect a little that in all parts of the world and in our community, there is definitely an increase in frustration at restrictions that come up. At odds, in their opinion, on how to handle the virus, it has created some miscommunication. And so we've been trying to support, more in-depth communication as much as possible. But how do you suggest people handle concerns or even an aggressive approach to differing with your opinion? So I'm asking Ken, the specialist in this area, to give some advice to users on how to stay centered and improve your communication.
Well, what I've noticed is whether you have a difference of an opinion with somebody about vaccination or the virus or politics, everybody agrees on the joy of cycle touring and being human and helping each other out, and to really focus on that. And if for some reason you feel like there is a difference, then don't go into the differences, go into the similarities. That's how you enjoy each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's not about that here. It's not about that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks. So let's talk a little bit about some of these amazing experiences you provide your guests, because you do provide experiences. I want to hear about the kayaking at night and the theme parks. Like, what's the most common request people have when they are in your part of the world, which is just to let everybody know again, he is located in Long Beach, California.
Oftentimes people will want to spend a couple nights because what they'll want to do during the day is they'll want to walk over to the metro station, which is about a little over a mile from the house here. And they'll take the Los Angeles Metro into Hollywood, to the Walk of Fame. Had some people hike up to the Hollywood sign from there. Universal Studios is also on the end of the metro line, and then coming back, they'll go to Los Angeles and either walk through downtown or Olvera Street. So a lot of times guests are pretty much on their own one day, and they're great with that. They just want to have a respite where they can explore the city. And if you've traveled with a bicycle, you know that it's hard to maneuver through a big city, and you're always worried about getting your bike stolen if you're actually like in the city center sightseeing. So it's great to be able to offer them kind of a little bit of a safe place where they still have the opportunity to go into the city. Guests usually don't ask to go kayaking or go to Disneyland or stuff like that. That's pretty much something that I throw out to them. It depends on the weather, depends on the day of the week, depends on the time of the year. With this last guest who came through, I had noticed he was traveling through social media. So instead of him contacting me through Warm Showers, I actually got in touch with him about 6 weeks prior to his visit, just saying, hey, I realize you're from a different country. If you have any questions about routing, I'm familiar with the areas that you're looking at. And if you're coming through Long Beach, please stay with us. And we built a relationship through correspondence for 6 weeks. So there was all this buildup to actually meeting him. And when I knew he was going to be around Christmas time, I showed him some pictures and said, hey, this is stuff that we can do when you get here if you arrive on the window when this happens, and worked out great.
And you got to go on the kayak at night?
Yeah, we take a lot of people, especially in the summer, instead of cooking dinner, we'll just say if they're not tired, if they want to go kayaking, we go across the bay in Long Beach here. And it's flat water. It's very simple. It's calm. I love getting pictures of people. Then they have more memories to take home with them. And then after dinner, we paddle back in the dark. Mm-hmm. They always say the same thing. They look around. They say, "Where is everybody? This is like magic." It's so weather's perfect. The water's perfect. Where is everybody? And I tell them, I go, well, California, we're kind of desensitized to the weather, so we don't tend to enjoy it as much as we should. So this is another reason why I like to do that with the guests. It's been a while since we've done too many of the dinner paddles, but that's because we haven't hosted as many people. But hopefully if things start opening up in 2022.
Yeah, amazing, Ken. You give so much, you experience so much, and you build, such a great community around your passions. We are always so pleased to have you discuss and share. We thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I wrote a book when I was in college about my first cross-country trips, and I never published it. And I'm polishing it off right now, and it's really interesting in hindsight, looking back, because I'm looking at these different experiences I had with teen youth groups, experiences I had like with hosts taking me kayaking or milking a cow. And it's like all these years later, I'm looking back and I'm seeing the parallels, and I'm seeing where the roots of who I became today has started. So it's been kind of therapeutic for me to do that. So that's another thing that I'm doing right now.
Amazing. When that book comes out, make sure you let us know so you can come on and talk about it, and we can help share it far and wide.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you listening, one of the most supportive ways that you can help this podcast is to share it with a friend or someone that might enjoy listening to it. Of course, we appreciate your ratings and reviews, but really sharing is caring. So we appreciate letting others know and tune in and meet more amazing community members like Ken down the road. So thank you again, Ken.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and hope to do this again some other time down the road.